If you recall, we did talk about how to use additional layers here. Let's say if we were using construction lines. Now remember, we have a template, so you can always add to your template. And I always like to add layers above layer 0. So in this case, in order to do that, I'm going to use symbols. So I can use a $, and let's create a construction line layer that we'll use to help us lay out our walls. Okay? Hit enter, and then we can make that by double-clicking the current layer. You could see there. Now the color of this layer doesn't really matter because we're not going to see this information in any of our outputs. But we're going to use it to place our construction lines. Now remember, we've got a specific starting point, right? So I'm going to take a look here, and you can see it's X 7 and Y is 6 feet. So now I can use my different coordinate entry methods to place my construction lines, along with using offset to create the general layout. So first I'm going to use construction line here, use the V option for vertical, and now to place it at that specific start point, I'm going to use absolute coordinates. So it's going to be 7 feet, the X, and then 6 feet, actually comma, and then 6 feet. And that's the X and the Y there together, the absolute coordinate pair. Hit enter, and that's exactly where it went. Now I'll do it again. Let's go right back into construction line, and I'll do horizontal. And once again, I can input the absolute coordinate, 7 feet, comma, 6 feet, enter. Now, because I'm using these construction lines, I'll use offset to create the interior boundaries at 20 feet from left to right. I'll select this construction line and offset to the right. And then again, go right back into offset. I can do that by hitting the space bar or enter, and then input the new distance, 32 feet, and enter. Select the horizontal construction line and offset towards the top. So there's the boundaries of the floor plan, the interior boundaries, right? Now let's start to illustrate the way that we're going to use multi-line. So you can see here, I've already created the style. It is current. Now I can come over here, use the multi-line tool, and the first thing you want to take a look at is take a look at the justification, right? You remember that the 0 line, right, was at 0, and then the second line was 6 inches away. So if I look at justification, just type J and then enter, and you'll see there. Right now it's defaulted to the top. I'm going to use 0 or Z and then enter to use the 0. Now watch as I start. Let me switch layers too, so I make sure it's on the right layer, A wall exterior. Okay, I'll start right up here in this corner, and you'll notice as I go this direction, you'll see that second line is pushed to the outside, right? But if I start in this direction, you can see how it's pushed to the inside. So justification does matter, and it makes a big difference depending on which direction you start drawing in, right? So by using these construction lines now, I can easily snap, once again making sure that I do have the correct running object snap and object snap tracking drafting settings on correctly. And to finish this wall, I'll just type C to close, and you can see how it created the junction and then it filled in the wall. That looks great so far. Now let's talk about how we're going to show the openings. All right, we've got an opening up here in the top left hand corner. Again, looking at my construction line there and looking at the drawing here, you can see it is 3 feet as an opening, and it's 1 foot 6 inches from the inside. Well, I know the walls are 6 inches, so take a look at the way I'm going to use the construction line. So I've got 1/6 plus 6, that makes it 2 feet, right? Offset 24, no notation, it understands that as inches. Hit enter, select the object I want to offset, and then direction to which I want to offset. So there's the 2 feet. Hit enter to exit. Hit enter to go right back into that previous command. And then I'll punch in 36 for 3 feet. Offset this one to the right, and this will serve as the cutting edges, right? The cutting boundaries for this wall. Now I'll use trim and select the 2 cutting edges. Hit enter, and then select the section of the wall that I want to trim. There you go. Now, as we continue, you'll be able to use your layer controls here to adjust the visibility of your drawing. Notice the difference here. If I use something like isolate, what I could do is I could go around and select the objects I want to isolate from the rest of the drawing. When I hit enter, what it does is it turns off the rest of the layers. And the best way to restore this is to simply unisolate. Now you can use freeze to do the same thing, or something similar rather, but when I do this, it still controls the visibility, but then I have to manually go back and thaw those layers. So I would say if you want to focus your attention, go ahead and use isolate, right? So that's one way you can check your work. Now, let's take a look at the right side here, and we've got, starting on this corner, we've got a 1 foot gap with 4 foot walls or windows and a 1 foot spacing between a pattern of windows here. So why don't we just go ahead and create the openings, and then we'll take a look at making blocks to represent the windows. So first, let's do the line work here. Okay, we're going to offset 1 foot 6 inches from this edge, and then we're going to offset 4 feet or 48 inches, and that would be the opening of our window, right? And then we offset again, and you got 12 inches, and then you have the 4 feet. Now we could continue to do offset, and changing the values or whatever, but what we could also do here is just make a copy, right? And you could see that if I use these 3 lines, right, here's the left side and the right side of the opening, and this is the spacing, right? So this line is basically that line right there, right? And what I could do here is if I use right click, copy selection, I'll be able to use a base point here, the base point there, and continue, just like that, to create a regular pattern that I'll use to lay out my windows. Okay? Now, to create the opening, I'll go ahead and select all of the construction lines that I want to use, and then go back and then cut away the opening. Now, take a close look. If I isolate just the walls, once again, okay, now you'll see that the walls are correctly closed, right? Showing the opening, but we have our fill, we have all our wall outline completely closed. Now, what we want to do is we want to fill that in with some window blocks, right? And let's just double check here. Okay, so on closer inspection, what I realize here is we've got the incorrect spacing. So we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 openings, 4 foot for the opening, and then the 1 foot spacing. Let's see if we could just go back. Let's undo this. There we go. Get rid of those previous construction lines. Let's try this one more time, right? So from here we go offset 4 feet. Oops. Let's go offset 4 feet, and then offset again 12 inches. Okay. Now we can go ahead and create our window spacing pattern. So I'm going to go ahead again and select just these 2 construction lines. Right click, copy selection. Now the spacing is going to be from here to this line here, right? That gives us the 4, and then the 1 foot, the 4, the 1 foot, the 4 and the 1 foot, the 4 and the 1 foot there, and then there's our final spacing right there. Okay? Now we can go ahead and start trimming. Once again, if I use trim tool, select all the construction lines that I want to use as the trimming edges, hit enter, and then go back into the spaces of the wall where I want to create the opening. Alright, and then if I isolate one more time, just the walls, we should just see the spacing that we're looking for, right? Okay, now let's turn our attention to creating window blocks, right? Windows and doors are just symbols in the floor plan, okay? They can be really simple symbols, or they could be very detailed. They could just use one layer, or they could use multiple layers. But the basic way to think about making a block, okay, is developing the line work for that block and then determining what the layer is going to be for that block. So we're going to draw the line work on layer 0, okay? I'm going to use layer 0, and then we're going to define the window block on the A glaze layer. So first, let's start by unisolating the information. Okay, switching to layer 0 here. Now, our window is going to be very simple. We're just going to show the front and back edge of the window and then what would be the glazing, right? Now, the front and back edge could be the sill, the frame, again, depending on the detail, right? So look at this. What I could do here is I'm going to set the two edges on the exterior wall layer. So here's one line and here's the other, and then return to layer 0 and simply draw the line that represents the actual window glazing, right? Now what's going to be our block? Our block is going to be this information here, right? Those three lines. And the way that this is going to work is we can use insert tab. You can see here, create block, or we could just type B for block. If I type B for block, what I want to do here is give it a name. Let's just call it a window. And then what you're going to do is you're going to define the base point by which you're going to insert this block, and you'll also select the objects that represent the block. You could provide a description if you like. You could say this is a 4-foot window, and provide any other additional information. So the base point, I'm going to pick a point somewhere on the object that I can reference with the plan, right? Either the bottom left-hand corner or the bottom right-hand corner. So this will be the base point. You come back to the dialog box, and then you select the objects. So it's this line here, the glazing, and then the outside, and then enter. Now you should see a thumbnail icon to confirm your selection. And once you review your settings, then you could click OK. Now this is a block. As you can see, I go over any part of it, all line work is highlighted. What I want to do now is place this on the correct layer, A glaze, and now you can see only that center line that was defined on layer 0, now as a block. All of the line work retains the layer properties on which it was created. However, that center line that was drawn on layer 0 now takes on the properties of the layer on which it resides. Right? So, what I could do, notice here, if I freeze the glazing layer, all I have is the opening, right? It's exactly the functionality that I want. And to create my pattern, all I need to do now is simply copy the selection. So once again, if I select it, right-click, we can do copy selection, use the base point, and simply copy through into the other spaces. And you'll see how I'm using the object snap and tracking here to make sure I snap to the same exact point. Okay? Now that's the layout of our windows. Let's take a look at creating another block, which, if we're looking at the plan here, we'll make a block of the desk and the chair. And then we'll also be able to create this pattern using the tool Array. So, first of all, let me go ahead and turn off these construction lines, so I'll freeze them instead. And then just somewhere off to the side here, I'll draw all the line work for my furniture block, which is going to be my desk and my chair. So start with the rectangle, and I'm going to make this using relative coordinates 5 feet, comma 2 feet 6 inches. All right, and then our seat here, we're going to make it 16 inches. So I'll say at 16, comma 16, enter. I believe we have a radius of 6, right? So we'll zoom in, we'll use fillet, type R to define the radius, enter the value there, 6 inches, and then we'll select each side there, re-enter the command, and do that side. Now, I can align it simply by using the move tool, selecting the object, and then tracking. I'm going to move from the midpoint here and track to the midpoint there to place it centered. Now, this is just simple line work on layer 0. And remember, when I create a block, I want to define the layer on which it's going to reside. So it's a furniture layer, right? So I go back to Insert, use Create Block, give it a name. I'll call it Desk Chair. Specify a base point. I'll use the bottom left-hand corner here. Then select the objects. Hit Enter. I could add a description if I like. Review your settings, and then click OK. And you'll notice now it'll take on the properties of the layer on which I placed it. So now we're talking about how we're going to do our furniture layout. If you take a look at the drawing, there's some dimensions there to show you exactly how it's laid out. So let's go back here to the Home tab. I'm already on the furniture layer, and I want to place this corner 4 feet away from this corner here. And here's a way I could do it. I could just create some temporary construction lines. Temporary because I can erase them after. So I can start right here in this corner, make a horizontal line there, and offset 48 inches or 4 feet. And this represents the intersection where this corner goes, right? So I can just select it, grab it by its grip, and then place it there at that intersection. All right, that's one instance. And you can see there how I can delete that information. And then now I need to make another copy 3 feet 6 inches away. Okay, so I'll just CP for copy, or select and right click. Make a copy like this, escape, and now I'll move it 3 feet 6 inches away. Make yet another copy. So CP, select the object, select the base point, and then the second point. And this will represent our pattern instance, right? Because all we want to do now is create 4 rows, all right, equally spaced apart. Now, one way we could do that is just like we did before with copy, or this other way. We can use the array tool, because with the array tool, it's associative now, which means that you guys can actually reset the spacing at any time, right? So if I select all 3, hit enter, now you can see at the top the ribbon changes and you have the properties for array. We have 1 column with 4 rows, okay? And you can see right here, this is the spacing. And I believe it happens to be 6 feet 6 inches, right? But you can see as I close the array and I decide later that I want to make changes, I can always come back, select it, and you can see those properties right there where you can make those changes at any time. We'll come back to this because we're going to look at redefining blocks. The next step, I want to take a look at adding some hatching. And specifically, we're going to take a look at hatch patterns and hatch gradients. Okay? So to start with, I always like to use area boundaries. Okay? And you could take a look at your template layers here. You can see we have a layer called NP area. And notice it has the $sign, so it's above layer 0, separate from all our construction layers here. So this is something I could use visually, temporarily, to define my areas and then to freeze it so I don't see it. But I can use rectangles or closed polylines as boundaries that I could later turn on and resize, and with associative hatching also resize the gradient or the hatch. So this will be really important, is to actually have a physical boundary. So I'm going to select this as the current layer, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and freeze our furniture for the moment. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create an area boundary that's going to represent the area where we're going to show a hatch pattern. Okay? Now, if we take a look at our layers here, I'm going to create a couple new layers. One that's just going to be for the hatch coloring or gradients, and the other which is going to be for the hatch pattern. Alright, so I'm going to use my layer control here to add a new layer. I'll just call it A hatch color, and then create another one, A hatch pattern, just like that. Now the layer properties here for hatching isn't really important, because I could define independently the hatch color or pattern color as I choose for each pattern that I lay down. Generally, I'm just using the layers to separate the information and to make it easier to work with, so I can isolate one versus the other, and then also use the draw order to stack them correctly. So for example, let's start with the hatch pattern layer. I'll double click it to make it active. You can see it here now. And let's say we're going to have a tile pattern in there, okay? Now pay attention that we have our annotation scale already set, and when I look at hatch here and I activate the hatch, you can see again, just like array, the properties show up in the ribbon, and we could select an area within a closed boundary, or we can select an object itself to define the area for the hatch pattern or hatch color, depending on what we're doing, right? So if I click on pick points, all I got to do is pick a point inside that boundary and to apply a hatch pattern or gradient. Now to define the pattern or gradient, I want to take a look here and here. You can see that it's a pattern, and if you use this button here, you can see your selection of patterns, right? So let's look for the net. There's one here called net. There it is. Now also look, we can set it to associative, right? We want it associative, and we want it annotative, because annotative resizes the hatch pattern for the scale that we're showing right now. We also have this scale button here, or value box, that we can continue to enlarge or reduce the pattern relatively. Okay? Now we won't get into that, but you can see that right now I've got a pattern in there, okay? And if I just hit enter, I can escape, and you'll notice that because the layer color is white, that's the color of my pattern here. And if I decide to change the color of my layer, let's say to a gray like that, you can see it'll change there too. So just keep in mind what color table and what layer colors you're using, so that you can have the expected output. We know that these colors are going to print in black and white. Now, let's say I want to add color below this, right? Like a gradient. So what I'm going to do here is change to the other layer and temporarily freeze the hatch pattern. Makes it easier to work with. Once again, if I go to hatch, this time instead of a pattern, I'm going to use a gradient. Okay? And this is where you could choose the different colors that you want to use with your gradient. Okay? I'm going to use, if I look here at select colors, you have the option to use any of these indexed or standard colors, or you could use something like true color, right? You could use true color here, where you can mix and match the RGB values. And also for my second color, I'll just make it white, and I'll place it right in this area. Now, also, if you want to adjust the angle, this can really help to define sort of the light source, right? The emission source. You can see right now it feels like it's coming from the top right of the screen, right? So I've adjusted angle, I've got my color in there. It's a gradient. I'm happy with everything. It's associative and annotative. Now I can hit enter to accept those changes. Now, in order to see both the color and the pattern, what we want to do is we want to send the color to the back and we want to put the pattern to the front. So if I turn on both layers, right, thaw both layers, where is the pattern? It's hard to see. It's underneath, right? But if I select it here, I want to do a right click and make sure I use draw order to bring the pattern to the front. Okay? Now later when we do our preview, you'll be able to take a look at what this is going to look like in your print. For the moment, let's go back here and take a look at turning on our furniture layer. Now, remember here, I'm going to regen, okay? We know the furniture is there, the layer is thawed, but we can't see anything, right? Because our color and our pattern is on top of it, right? Where is the furniture? I don't see it. So this is where draw order really becomes critical, right? You can see that if we select both of these things here, I'm going to send both of them to the back. Now we should see our furniture, right? Now the thing is, we made our furniture layout there based on a block, right? So now take a look at this. We're going to look at block revising, and we're going to add hatch to our block as well, okay? And you'll see how there's an advantage to using blocks. What I'm going to do is on the furniture layer to the side, I'll insert another copy of the desk chair right there. Okay? Now all of these are just instances of that same block. What I'll do here is I'm going to revise the block, and you'll see how the other ones will be revised as well. So to revise a block, what I'm going to do is select it here, right click, and you could see you could use the block editor. When you use the block editor, you're editing out of context, right? Just editing the block by itself. You can see here that the properties show up in the ribbon, and I can close it here and just cancel any changes. If I select the block and instead right click and use edit block in place, what I'm doing is I'm editing the block within the context, right? Within the context of the drawing. So for what we're doing, it doesn't really matter which way you do this, but what does matter is this. You can see here in the home tab, right, all my line work for the block is in layer 0. You could see that if I do my quick properties, right? What I want to do is I want to add color. Not a pattern, but just color. Okay, so I'm going to use that same hatch color layer, and I'm updating the block right now. So this is new information that I'm adding to the block. And I'll come back here to hatch, and you'll notice, right, it's in pattern, but I'm going to use gradient. And let's just use a lighter color than what we have here, right, just for illustration. Okay, and then I'll fill here and fill there, right? Again, it's associative and annotative. Hit enter. There's my fill, or the gradient hatch. I'll select it and send it to the back. Now the reason for that is because I want to see the lines on top, right? So that's my block revision. Make sure I come up here to the top right corner and save the changes. And you'll notice it's going to update all the references. Just like that. Right? That's the advantage to working with blocks. Now the last thing that we got to do here is add some annotations, and then the final thing is to do the page setup for Paperspace. Alright, so now that we're ready to do some annotations, let's adjust here our layers. So I'm going to create all my annotations on the ADIMS layer. Alright? Now, you may not want all this hatching and patterns visible while you're working. You can always freeze that information, right? Just find the right layer, and we could simply freeze that information so that we're not so distracted, right? And so I'm just going to do a few of the dimensions here just to illustrate, but we're going to go over here to annotate. And the important thing is, once again, make sure you're still in the right annotation scale. Right? We'll just do a couple dimensions here. We'll do the linear dimension for the width. Right? 2 clicks to define the points that you're measuring, and the third is to place it. If we do the vertical one, we can use the same linear dimension tool, and notice how I'm using the scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and then the third button, or the third click, is to place it. Now also, if we take a look here at leaders, right, we already have a predefined leader there. And when I activate the command, you can see at the bottom there, you can change the order, whether you're placing the arrowhead first or if you're placing the text. You can see right now that it's set to place the arrowhead first. And notice, because I have my OSNAP working, it snaps to the midpoint here or to the end point. In order to snap anywhere I want, I can do this. I can go Shift, right click, and select something like Nearest. Nearest would allow you to snap anywhere directly on the line. So that's the start of the leader line there. You can see my leader, and then I can place it, and then it'll place the text box. And here I could just type in my note. There we go. Right? Now, just to give you an idea of the types of annotations, I'm going to stop with that. And now we can turn our attention to working with the Paperspace layout.